Alright, good afternoon, everyone, or whatever time it may be, wherever you're at. Um, I wanted to make a video specifically about the pulsars. I had gotten into them a little bit in that three-parter about the 13 lunar tones and 20 solar seals, but I only touched on the pulsars that Jose Arguelles, or Valum Votan, uh, had pieced together and showed us. So I want to make a video just on the pulsars and getting into 5 different kinds of pulsars. He only put forth 2, but following the law of time, I have discovered 3 other ones. And if you're new to my channel, I apologize for the setup. This is all that I can muster at the moment. But yeah, before I get into it though, I want to mention a correction of a mistake that I had made. Well, it's not really a mistake, but um, I wanted to mention the etymology that I had referred to when I was talking about the word telepathy or telepath. Tele does mean like from far off or from far away, um, but path or pathos means, like I said, that it meant mind, and in a way it does, but pathos refers to, after I had refreshed my memory of it, pathos is like the suffering of a character in a story, right? It represents the emotional turmoil of your character. So pathos means like suffering. It's psyche that refers to the mind, because I had to remember looking up the etymology of or somebody had pointed out the etymology of the word psychopath, or like sociopath, for instance, and that means like someone who suffers in the mind for psychopath, or psychepath, like psychopathos, and sociopathos means somebody who suffers from society. But telepath means somebody who suffers from far away. And it's not necessarily someone who suffers from far away, but it's that, and this is actually one of the interesting things that I wanted to bring up, but I'm going to have to go into further detail in a later video. But telepathy, like I mentioned, is not just, or I believe I mentioned this, it's not just exchanging thought speech as what, that's one part of telepathy. That's typically the only idea that people have of telepathy in their mind, is being able to pick up on what people, the words that people are saying in their head. But you can also pick up on imagery that people are imagining in their head. You can pick up on their memories, you can pick up on their vibrations, and that means you can pick up on their suffering, which is why the word telepath or telepathos means suffering from far away, because it's the human brain and body is like a antenna, right? It picks up the vibratory field of the torus picks up on energy patterns from other beings and other humans and other life forms, and it can experience them. This is where you come into mirror neurons. But essentially, pathos refers to suffering, or it can mean the emotions, or it can also mean the mind, the mental content, right? So it's just, telepathy literally encodes the meaning of picking up on those vibrations. So the practice of telepathy is being able to understand that process and being able to convert those memory charges for yourself and for other people, which is where the breathing codes come into play. But I'm most likely tomorrow I'm going to make a video going into the next layer of the breathing codes, as well as talking more about converting the breath, etc., in order to discharge the electrical charges that we can pick up, which causes pain and suffering. And anyways, now that that's clarified, I don't have much time, so I'm going to get into this quick, and I'm going to be fast at explaining it. But we're only going to talk about the pulsars, which Jose Arguelles put forth 2, but I discovered 3 different ones. So first we'll mention the first 2. By the way, if you're new to this, I highly suggest you go check out my 13 lunar tones and 20 solar seals video, or just start at the beginning of my videos to kind of get a better idea. I'm going to skip past explaining the basics and get more into the heart of the topic. So here's the 13 lunar tones and the way the Mayans depicted them. And so here's the first set of pulsars. These are just what Jose Arguelles Overtone mentioned as just pulsars, right? The dimensional pulsars, if you will. So there are 4 separate different dimensions, and the first lunar tone, the 5th lunar tone, the 9th, and the 13th are the one that is distinct from the other 3, right? Now, the thing to point out is the way that these pulsars are constructed is they jump in sets of 4, right? So 1, add 4, you get 5, add 4, you get 9, add 4, you get 13, right? And these have to do with the dimension of time, right? Which has the mathematical code in it, which has synchronicity, etc. And then you have these the first dimensional life pulsar, which is 2, add 4, you get 6, add 4, you get 10. So that has to do with the processes of biology, moving around chemicals and minerals and things that have to do with the creation of our physical forms, right? And then you have the second dimension sense pulsar, which is sort of like the bridge or the medium in which we experience sensations, right? The senses, there are 6 basic, well, there are 4 basic senses, and then there are 2 fusion senses, which constitute our, our 6 senses. And these are basically what interpret how we experience and how we feel life, right? And how we draw in different energies. And they are the 3rd, add 4, you get 7, add 4, you get 11. So 3, 7, and 11 constitute the second dimension sense pulsar. And then you have the 3rd dimensional mind pulsar, which is 4, add 4, you get 8, and then add 4, you get 12. So these have to do with the thinking process, right? It hones in on the the internal stuff that we experience regarding the mind. Now, one interesting thing about these pulsars is that within a wave spell, it doesn't matter which wave spell it is, they all connect the different groups of the colored seals, right? Or the elemental seals. So if this were a red wave spell, for instance, it would begin with a red kin, and so then it'd go white, blue, yellow, and then this would be red, white, blue, yellow, this would be red, white, blue, yellow, this would be red. So everyone in the 4th dimensional time pulsar would be a red seal, and then everyone in this set, the 1st dimension, would be a white, and then everyone in this one would be blue, and then everyone in this one would be yellow. So that's how it that's how it bases the pulsar links or the connections between the seals in a wave spell, right? It gives you the complementary energy, which, if, for instance, if it were red in the time dimensional pulsar, then the essence of time would be about starting anew, right? It'd be like a new beginning of time. It would be initiating or waking up to time, right? And then go back and you watch the video on the 13 lunar tones and 20 solar seals videos that I made. It would give you the information regarding each tone and how that relates to this further information I've just given you, and etc. for the other ones, right? So, for instance, like if these were white seals, for instance, they would have the essence of those tones all in white, and they would all link together. So as you go through the days of a wave spell, you can reflect back. For instance, during the first day, right, there's no well, there's these established links between these future days, right? 4 days from then, 8 days, and 12 days, right? And it will give you, like, you can access these things through meditation. You can kind of get an idea of how these energy links will occur in the future, as well as when you say when you come to these days, you can look back, right, rear sight, if you will, rear shadowing of how these are connected to what's going on right now. So you have foreshadowing, right, looking forward to the future, and you have rear shadowing, which is looking to the past. Shout out to LML or David Lightbringer on YouTube for at least coining that term in my mind, rear shadowing. I don't even know if that's an actual thing, but yeah, it's a very interesting word. So that's essentially, these are like, I guess you would consider them the base pulsars. They're very basic information to understanding how the days relate to one another in a wave spell. But I'm gonna go ahead and since I don't have much time, I'll probably eventually make a part 2, kind of going more into detail when I have more time. But these are what are known as the overtone pulsars. Now, the reason why they're called the overtone pulsars, as far as my knowledge, as far as I'm aware, is that they're overtones of each other, and overtone is the 5th tone, right? Which they jump by 5 instead of 4, right? 1, 5, 9, and 13, for instance. Now you're going from, say, the 1st tone to the 6th and to the 11th, right? You're jumping in sets of 5. So 1, add 5, you get 6, add 5, you get 11. And then 2, 7, and 12, 3, 8, and 13, 4, 9, 5, and 10. And these two sets are different than the other ones. Now, one thing to notice about this set of pulsars is the way that they function is not based on the colors, because, for instance, if you have, again, the first wave spell, you would have Red Magnetic Dragon. Or actually, let's say this wave spell. We're in the White Wolf wave spell, right? So right here, you'd have White Magnetic Wolf. And then you would have Blue Rhythmic Eagle. And then you would have Yellow Spectral Sun, which is today, right? Now, this would be a white seal. This is blue, and this is yellow. So again, they're going in the order of red, white, blue, yellow, red, white, blue, yellow. But the thing that connects these three kin, right, or the seals of these kin, is that they're all of the same Earth family. And you remember me mentioning Earth families, right? So another thing that connects these three is their dot bar notation. So you want to look in the 1 position, right? The 1 position always remains at the top, right? So right here, this represents the number 13 because a bar equals 5 and a dot equals 1. So if you have 2 bars, that sums to 10, and 3 dots, that sums to 13. But the 3 dots up here at the top are in the 1 position, right? Sort of like the digit, if you were to write, you know, numbers how we do in America and most other places in the world, right? It'd be in the 1-digit place, and then you'd have the 10-digit, and then the 100-digit, 1000-digit, etc. And these are also determined based on the number of dots or bars within the 1 position, right? So, for instance, 1 and 6 both have 1 dot in the 1 position, and so does 11, right? 1 dot at the top. So that's how they're also connected. And these sort of give a different sort of energy. So let's get into the just an example. So up here we would have kin 170, which is White Magnetic Wolf, which establishes that this is the White Wolf wave spell, or the White Dog wave spell, as some people call it. And then this would be Blue Rhythmic Eagle, kin 175, right? And then this would be kin 180, Yellow Spectral Sun. Now, again, I said that they were all in the same Earth family, which is the polar Earth family. And one thing to note is that, okay, this is one thing that I forgot to mention in the well, I don't know if I made a wave spell video just yet, but I think I have. I can't remember. But one thing to note is that in every wave spell, right, the spectral tone kin of the wave spell will always be antipodal to the seal that begins and leads the wave spell. So if this were White Wolf, seal number 10, this would be Yellow Spectral Sun, seal 20, right? And 10 and 20 are antipodal or antipodal, right? They're opposed because they're 10 apart. So for every wave spell, the spectral tone will always be antipodal to the seal that leads and guides and rules the wave spell. So for instance, if this were red magnetic dragon, this would be blue spectral monkey, and etc. etc. They're 1 and 11. They're antipodes to each other. They oppose each other and they challenge each other, but they stabilize each other, right? So the way that they're stabilized, and they're not exact antipodes, right? The exact antipode of white magnetic wolf would be yellow magnetic sun, right? Because they share the same tone. But within the structure of the wave spell, these two are antipodal seals, right? So this is the one that puts forth the purpose of the wave spell, and this is the one that overcomes the challenge of the wave spell. And again, going back to the word spectral, which represents the spectrum, which is rainbow light, but it also refers to specters, which are ghosts. And so ghosts are essentially beings made out of light, right? And so that encodes a very powerful and profound truth that spirits or ghosts are essentially entities made out of light. And so when the spectral kin of the wave spell comes around, it's sort of like they're dying and they're shedding their ego, and then the essence of who they are remains to put forth the power that is their seal, right? Because they're being challenged this entire process, right? And so they finally shed their ego and represent the energy that they are inside, which is their galactic energy, right? Instead of their material form, etc., and their ego. And so the seal that always lies within the rhythmic tone of the wave spell acts as a sort of medium between them, right? Since blue teaches white or helps white energy, because white is ultimately becoming blue, right? It's transforming into the blue, right? It's what the color in the alchemical element that it's becoming. The blue helps and aids the purpose of the white, for instance, and basically puts forth the helping the yellow to meet the demands that the white is putting forth. And this works for every wave spell, so every color set, right? And understanding the three kin that are in the wave spell and how they relate to one another it helps you to give you energy, especially whenever it's challenging you and your galactic signature, or if it's challenging another person. You can help. If you're the medium, you can remember that and you can act as medium and serve as medium. Or if you're the one that has to spectralize in a sense, then that is your goal, and it helps to know that, so that way it's easier. It's an easier process rather than being rigid about it and making it more painful for yourself. Or if you're the one putting forth the purpose, then you know to stand your ground and to stay in your one perspective and keep putting forth what you feel is correct. So that is the energy of an overtone pulsar, right? Whereas 2, 7, and 12 do the same thing. 2 and 12 are antipodal. 7 is the medium. 3, 8, and 13. 3 and 13 are antipodal, and 8 is the bridge or the medium. And then 4 and 9 are sort of like 4 and 9 and 5 and 10 are two sets of bystanders that essentially act as their complementary energies through these other three clashes, if you will. These other three sets, they are being challenged, right? They're being challenged by each other, and they're having to come to this agreement, right? This acceptance, right? And these other two sets are essentially helping to act as a sort of base and a sort of support through this time, right? So that's how the overtone pulsars work. Now, I don't have graphics for this because I'm still kind of working on this, and I just didn't have time to draw it out, but I will explain it using this base model of the wave spell. So let me take a drink of some coconut water real quick. It's pineapple coconut water, so it's uber delicious. So all right, the next kind of pulsars that I want to get into are well, hang on, let me think for a second. All right, there's three other kinds of pulsars that I want to get into, but two of them are essentially part of the same pulsar process. They're like two different groups, right? Well, you have one primary pulsar, and then you have this subgroup that helps to support that main pulsar, and then another one is essentially, well, I'll go ahead and say it. So the first kind of pulsar, and I'll just run by this real quick before I get into more detail. I may not have time to finish this video, but I'll finish the rest of it tomorrow. I actually realized that I can make videos at night. I figured out a way to get better lighting, so now I'm able to make videos at night. So I may do it tonight, and just, I'm just clarifying that now. So the first one that I want to mention is the what I've called the self-wear pulsars, right? And not self-aware, but self-wear, right? Like software, but it's, self and then hyphen WARE. So self-wear, like software, but of the self. Now, the self-wear pulsars are made up of 5 different seals within, or not seals, but 5 different kin in the wave spell, right? And instead of jumping in sequences of 4 for the 4-dimensional time pulsars, or the 5 overtone pulsars, these jump in sets of 3, right? So you're adding 3 onto whatever kin, right? So the first one, this is the primary set, which is made up of 5 kin, right? And sorry for my dirty hands, I do a lot of cleaning at work, but so this primary pulsar, which is sort of like a I don't want to say it's like a pentagram the way it connects, because it's made up of 5, right? So the first one is the magnetic, then it jumps by 3 and goes to self-existing, and then it goes to resonant, and then it goes to planetary and cosmic. So it's made up of the magnetic, the self-existing, the resonant, planetary, and the cosmic. Let me see if I have a graphic here real quick that I can further illustrate this with. Yeah, okay. Remember this? Okay. And so what this is based off of is, so you have 1 to 13, 7 being in the center. So there's 3 of them. But from 1 to 7, 4 sits perfectly in the center, like it is right here. And on the flip side, we have 10 in the center, right? Because you have 1, 2, 3, 10 in the center, 11, 12, or, 1, 2, 3. So it's made up of these central numbers here, right? So you have 1, 4, 7, 10, 13. You see what I'm saying? So this is what is known as the self-wear pulsars, right? And there are 100 different kin that comprise all of the 20 wave spells, right? Because you have 5 for each wave spell. There's 20 wave spells, 100 kin. So it's basically all the magnetic kin, all the self-existing kin, all the resonant kin, all the planetary kin, and all the cosmic kin. And if you have a tone of that, you should definitely look into this. So this, as far as I'm aware, essentially helps to understand the process of how the self changes, right? And the self is partly ego, but it's also your extension to your higher self, as well as the collective, which what I call the Tao. So the magnetic establishes the purpose. It's sort of like downloading the information into yourself to understand, okay, I'm downloading the purpose, right? And this is especially important if it is your wave spell, or if it's the wave spell of the same seal as you, or you know what I'm saying, or this is your kin. And then when you get into the self-existing, this is sort of like installing that. It's like you download a file, right? And the self-existing is when it installs the methodology. How am I going to do this, right? What is the form in which this is going to take? So it's sort of like a process of it taking time to install. So during the day of this, like of the wave spell, the self-existing, it's sort of like coming to the realization of, okay, it's now installing, and it's putting in this new software, right, of how I'm going to change. And then when you hit the resonant tone, that's when the programming begins, right? The changes are now happening, right? It's the very center tone. So now the blueprint, if you will, or the tone, right, the vibe of everything is now taking place, and the changes are occurring. So on that day, you start to have these realizations of how you're changing, right? And again, going back to the resonant tone, it's not something you have to actively do. You just have to be open to and understand, right? Because it's going to change you in a synchronistic way, right? It doesn't mean you can't take action, but again, it's a very transformative thing because you're just resonating at it, right? It's the self changing, and a lot of that really has nothing to do with what your ego can do, right? You know what I'm saying? And then the planetary tone is sort of like running the software. It's activating it. It's like putting it into action, right? Because again, the planetary tone goes back to the challenge and the action take place, right? And if you're open to synchronicity, again, you really don't have to do anything. You just have to stay open to what is and try to do your best to what life brings you. So the planetary tone is sort of like putting it into action, right? So and then the cosmic tone is sort of getting a preview of what's coming next in the next wave spell, and you're sort of uploading that energy into the noosphere matrix, or the Tao, to then be converted into what will be brought in the next wave spell, so to speak, right? So this is like the download, this is the installation, this is the programming, this is the run, where you run the self-ware, and then or you activate it, the operation, if you will, and then this is the uploading into the matrix to determine how much or what the energy will be in the next one, right? So there's a process of this. When this tone occurs, there's a process of like finishing out the last of the sequence to get it all uploaded, right? To send it all out, and once it's sent all out, then when the magnetic tone occurs at midnight, right, when this day is over and the next midnight comes, right, then you start to begin the download process again, and whatever you're resonating up until that point will determine the next energy that comes for you, right? So that's what these 5 tones are doing, right? So that's the Self-Ware pulsar. Now, the subset, or I don't want to say sub because it's just as equally as important, it's just these are like the main center focus, right? When these days occur, right? The other ones are made up of a sort of different energy, and they're twofold in nature. So thinking of the Trinity is the Mun, which is the earth, and then you have Lun, right, the 2, lunar, right, and then you have Sun, which is the third of the Trinity, right, the electric energy. So you have the magnetic Mun, or the magnetic earth, and then you have the lunar Lun, which is the white mirror in the night sky, not the moon is the earth, remember that. And the electric is the El, which is like Elohim, right? It's the sun. So you have Mun, Lun, and Sun, right? So taking that sequence, right, it always begins with Mun. Mun is the center. Mun is the primary one, which its mirror is 0. And then you have the 2, which is Lun and Sun, ice and fire. They're dualities of each other. So it always begins with Mun, right? Mun, then Lun, and then Sun. So lunar is lun, obviously. Electric is sun. And then you go back to mun. And so that's where you get the 1, 4, 7, 10, and 13. Mun, lun, sun. Mun, lun, sun. Mun, lun, sun. Mun, lun, sun, mun. So there are 5 mun, and that brings us to the Self-Ware pulsars. There are 4 lun and 4 sun. So the 4 lun are the lunar, the overtone, the galactic, and the spectral. And the 4 sun are the electric, the rhythmic, the solar, and the crystal. So that's where you get a lot of these understandings of the sun being electric, the rhythmic. Both of these words in septenary gematria, or septenary gematria, my bad. Electric and rhythmic both equal 35. So they're connected, 3 and 6, right? 6 is double 3. And then you have solar, which, is 9. And then crystal, right? That's the Christ, the Al, it's the sun, right? So 3, 6, the things that make up sun this is interesting, 3, 6, 9, and 12. All those numbers are interrelated with each other, and they refer back to sun. And 2, 5, 8, and 11 refer back to lun. All those energies, tones, numbers, etc. go back to lun. So the thing about the lun, though, lunar, overtone, galactic, and spectral, they all have to do with an input, right? It's all about drawing in. You can call it karma, right? This is why Jose Arguelles called the 10 planetary sequence of the 20 solar seals, which I haven't described, as the galactic karma, which is the drawing in of karma. It's sort of like the issue or the problem, right? And then you have the solar prophecy, which is sort of like the expression, right? It's like expressing the energy. So on the 2, 5, 8, and 11, all 4 of these relate to the issue at hand. It's sort of like, okay, this is the things that we need to fix during this wave spell. And the electric, the rhythmic, the solar, and the crystal is the solving of that problem, right? It's the solving, right? Because that's why it goes back to sun, right? It's the expression. It's like, all right, we know the problems. This is how we're going to fix them. Now, there's 2 sets of 4, right? The 2, 5, 8, and 11, and the 3, 6, 9, and 12. 2 sets of 4. Now, there are 4 sets of 2, and this is how this works. The first set of 2 is lunar and electric, right? These 2 are grouped together. And then you have 5 and 6, 8 and 9, and 11 and 12. Now, I have to go here soon, but essentially they're pairings that sort of are connected through synchronicity, and by understanding the two kin that are in those positions and understanding each tone, you can kind of get an idea of how they're interrelated and they're interconnected, right? Another interesting thing is that of the occult tones. Remember me talking about the occult of I don't think I have it here, but of the oracle, right? To determine the tone of an occult, for instance, going back to this, they always will sum to 14 when added with the tone of your galactic signature. So again, if you have a tone of 1, the tone of your occult will be 13, because 1 and 13 make 14, 2 and 12, 3 and 11, 4 and 10, 5 and 9, 6 and 8, and 7 and 7. So this brings into the sort of occult nature of how they're connected as well. So 2 and 12 are connected, right? The challenge of the wave spell and the cooperation of the collective are connected, right? The lunar and the crystal, 1 being lun, 1 being sun. And then you have electric and spectral. And then you have the overtone and the solar, and then the rhythmic and the galactic. Again, pairings of 1 sun and 1 lun. So there's 2 different ways to connect them, right? And different energies that you can determine of what it's going to be like, right? You have this set, this set, this set, and this set. and then you have this pairing, this pairing, this pairing, and this pairing. So you see? And so again, the lunar energy has to do with the reflection. That's why it's the white mirror. It's the energies that you are being reflected back to you, right? The problems and the things that need to be fixed. And the solar energy is the solution or the solvent. So those are the Self-Ware pulsars. Again, there's different ways to look at it. You know, you have the main 1, 4, 7, 10, 13 Self-Ware pulsar. It's like the pentagram, right? And then you have the other 8 referring back to Sun and Lun, right? Because you have 2, 2, 2, and 2 that makes 8 seals, which refer back to the analemma. It refers back to the ecliptic, right? The figure 8 circuit in the sky, because that's Sun and Lun. And the pentagram or the pentacle represents earth energy because it represents the earth below, right? It represents the 5, the pentacles, like in the tarot, minor arcana. So I guess the last thing that I want to mention before I have to go is the jumping pulsars. Now I'm just gonna. I actually realize I gotta get going. But the jumping pulsars are essentially how the these last 4, right, connect to these 4 of the next wave spell, right? And I'm not gonna get into much detail, but so remember me talking about how the regular pulsars are all connected by the same seals of the same color. So these would all be, for instance, red, these would all be white, these would be blue, and then these would be yellow, you know? Well, the color of this tone in a wave spell will be the same color as the magnetic of the next wave spell, right? So the planetary tone will jump to the next wave spell. The energy that occurs on this day, the challenge, remember, because planetary goes back to the manifestation of the challenge, and you have to take action, etc. That energy will be transferred over to bring in a connection to the next wave spell's magnetic tone. The spectral will connect to the lunar, the crystal will connect to the electric, and the cosmic will connect back to the self-existing, right? So the 4 energies of these last ones will have complementary energies of the 4 seals of the next wave spell. So, and one interesting thing that Lloydine Arguelles had pointed out, Jose Arguelles' wife at the time, I had seen a video of her mentioning this. Say that this is the first wave spell. This is the red dragon, red magnetic dragon. This would be red cosmic Skywalker, Kin 13. Now, Kin 13, Cosmic Skywalker, is guided by red cosmic Earth, Kin 117, right? It's the Skywalker guided by the Earth. And this will then jump to Kin 17 in the next wave spell, White Magnetic Wizard, Kin 14. This energy will then jump to this one, being the next red seal along the Zolkin, which is Kin 17, red self-existing Earth. And red self-existing Earth is guided by red self-existing Skywalker. So one interesting thing is the cosmic self-existing principle is that this will be a seal guided by, say, this is the Skywalker guided by the Earth, and then this one will be the Earth guided by the Skywalker, in a sense, right? So that's just one cool thing that I point out. But I'll have to make a part 2. I wanted to make use of this free time that I had. I've been really busy at work, been working, you know, like crazy, and I've been not feeling too well, but I'm starting to feel better, and I had like an hour and a half of sunlight, so I figured I'd get into this. But yeah, those are the Self-Ware pulsars and the jumping pulsars, right? Or the arcing pulsars, and how these last 4 tones will connect to these 4 of the next wave spell. So I hope you find what I have to put forth interesting. I hope I'm, putting forth some purpose. I am going to, I've had some revelations regarding synchronizing the mathematics of the zodiac back into proper, I guess you could call it true syncretism, right? Because again, like I said before, the zodiac is compromised. It's been corrupted, polluted, etc. Um, so I have had some recent revelations. So one of the next videos I'm going to be making here soon is just putting forth all the information that I have regarding that. Again, it's not that doing that whole thing is not something that I feel passionate about. It's just something I feel like has to be done, and I don't see anybody doing it. So I'm going to put forth everything that I have synchronized so far, and then I'm just going to leave it at that. I'm not going to force myself to find more information. But when the next revelations come, then I'll upload further videos regarding things that I've newly discovered. So, yeah, and then I'm going to do another video on the breath. That's coming up. That'll probably be the next one. And then after that, I'll show you the synchronizations I've had with the Zodiac. But I hope, again, that this is helpful to people. I'm going to let go, as the Tao says, after doing my work, and just see where the Tao takes me. So everybody have a great day, or, great hob,